The Dunlop Endurance Championship, in association with Trico, concluded at Brands Hatch with 2 night races and Tockwith Motorsports at the top of the standings.
This is the very essence of a family team, isn't it?
Definitely. It's all family orientated. We all help each other out. Sometimes we tell each other off when we need to, but we also pick each other up off the ground when we need to as well. So definitely. We've had a few downs, but yeah, I think overall, obviously, we're at the top of the championship for a reason. So, you know, we're hoping to continue that this weekend, finish both the races and take the big trophy home.
We've always been pushing to get race wins, but thinking that we could win the championship in my first year, we didn't really think we'll be in this position that we are, but the team has done an amazing job getting us here. Big thanks to my sponsors, Whitworth Chemists, for getting us to this position as well. So I can only thank everyone involved with it.
With the track-focused pairing of Mike McCullum and Sean Cooper forced to sit this one out due to health reasons, the team-hard pairing of Simon Rudd and Tom Barley, who came close to winning the championship last year, are the only other team that can take the endurance title. But it's much closer in the sprint championship. Christian Prosser and John Watt come here as the points leaders, but have been on the back foot since the weekend began, as team principal Mike Moss explains.
Christian's had a big incident testing yesterday and put it in the wall, so he's made quite a bit of a mess and power steering issues. But the guys have worked tirelessly at Woodrow Motorsport to get that put back right. So that's gone well. So fingers crossed, it's all looking good. But they've just got to points this weekend, you know. But they're hot-headed and they'll be trying to win. But I know John can't help but to go for it, so just keep it on the tarmac, that's all they got to do.
3 other teams still have a chance to steal this year's crown. The CTR Alpha-tuned Seat of fellow Class 4 entrants John Clonis and Chris Bentley lie second in the points, while Class 5 leader Andy Napier is third overall in the Napier Racing Lotus Elise. Former champions FF Course lead Class 1 and are 4th in the overall standings after David Mason and teammate Ross Wiley won at Silverstone last time out. First up, qualifying. A cold and damp but drying circuit awaited the teams, conditions that would prove somewhat challenging. Mason and Wiley claimed pole in the Ferrari, but were run close by the ALP Racing Seika of David Bryce and Alan Purbrick.
This car, because of the power that it's got and the way that we can put it down, it's better on the longer circuits. Brands Hatch, the Indy circuit, is a very technical, tight, short circuit. You're going to be in and out of cars all of the time in the dark. So it'll make for some fun driving and some exciting racing.
So the Ferrari and the Seika share the front row. Then it's the Butler Motorsport Ginetta of Lucky Kerrer and Declan Jones and the Moss Motorsport BMW of Mike Moss and Chris Murphy. The sister car of Sprint Championship leaders John Watt and Christian Prosser, an excellent 5th. Blazing headlights and rising engine notes filled the early evening air as the first race of the weekend got underway. Ross Wiley led the charge into Paddock Hill Bend aboard the Ferrari, followed by David Bryce in the Seika, while the BMW of Mike Moss snatched 3rd from Lucky Kerrer's Ginetta. Then it was Ed Moore's Ginetta in 5th place and the McLaren of Rob Young and Neil Garnham in 6th. Christian Prosser had slipped a couple of places to 7th, and the BMW was coming under attack from former champion Martin Byford in the number 60 Seat. He in turn was being stalked by the blue-lit Ginetta of Tom Barley, and under braking into Graham Hill Bend, Barley then found himself under attack from the 77 BMW of Kevin Clark. The pair rubbed wheels on the exit, puncturing the BMW's front right tyre and sending him pit-bound right at the start of the race. Up ahead, Moss and Kerrer ran nose to tail for 3rd place as they accelerated out of clearways and towards the end of the first lap. The gap began to widen as former Britcar production champion Moss unleashed the power of his 1M, while the Ginetta Super Cup racer Kerrer tried to adjust to his first nighttime race. At the end of a season marred by engine-related issues, Moss was finally getting the chance to show what he can do. Ed Moore was now up to 5th place for Tockwith Motorsports and was now the highest placed Class 4 car. With its purple neon strip lights, the McLaren had dropped back to 6th, followed by Martin Byford and Tom Barley, who had both got past Christian Prosser's BMW. In the pits, the Intersport crew were changing Kevin Clark's front right, following that lap 1 puncture. Head down, Ross Wiley was on a mission to build as big a lead as he could before handing over to teammate David Mason for the second half of the race. After 3 laps, his advantage over the ALP Racing Seika was 2.9 seconds. Wiley with fond memories of Brands Hatch, having claimed last year's Dunlop Endurance Championship title here, alongside Whit Gampsky and the MJC Furlonger team. Bryce was doing a good job, though, of keeping him in sight aboard the less powerful Class 2 Seika. Back in the pit lane, another car with a puncture, and this time it was the Endurance Championship leader, Sarah Moore. Not the calm start to the race Tockwith had been hoping for. In 6th place, Tom Barley had shaken off Martin Byford's Seat, only for it to be replaced by the TCR spec Audi of Matt Le Breton and ex-BTCC racer James Kay, who duly pounced at Paddock Hill Bend. And yet more drama as the Team Hard Ginetta of Nick Scott Dickerson and title hopeful Christian Prosser both crawled into the pits with unrelated issues. This would give hope, as well as the class lead, to title rivals Clonis and Bentley in the Seat. A gearbox failure was the cause of Prosser's demise, while Scott Dickerson had become the latest driver to pick up a puncture, this replay showing him scraping and sparking his way back to the pits. Team Hard worked quickly to get the Ginetta back out, but for the Sprint Championship leaders, it was game over. Their BMW retired for the day. Just before the midway point of the race, David Bryce found his mirrors full of dazzling headlights as the race-leading Ferrari 458 came up to lap him. Ascending Halewood Hill for the 29th time, the gap came down as Ross Wiley inched closer under braking and then moved up the inside through Druids, having now lapped the entire field. Bryce remained comfortable in 2nd place, especially after Mike Moss had left the track with a gearbox shaft failure, compounding a miserable day for the team. 3rd place had therefore been picked up by Lucky Kerrer, though he was being seriously harassed by the older Class 4 machine of Ed Moore, less than a second covering the pair. And the Mark Carr's Audi had now pulled clear of Tom Barley's Ginetta for 5th place. And things were hotting up in the pit lane as the Technosport BMW briefly caught fire. It was promptly extinguished, but pit lane rules had been contravened and the car was later excluded. Andy Napier led Class 5. A Class win would keep up the pressure on Sprint Championship leaders Watts and Prosser for the overall title. Rob Baker ran 2nd in class aboard the S2 Smart's smart car. And having been on course for a class podium, huge frustration for BPM Motorsport. The car's fire extinguisher accidentally triggered, forcing them to retire. While most BMWs were having a nightmare, the Jeff Steele Racing M3 of Sam Allpass was running well, 8th overall and leading Sprint Class 4. But as an invitation entry, he wasn't entitled to championship points, so the battle for 2nd in class between the number 78 VW of Tim Docker and the number 35 Seat of John Clonis was for maximum points, and with the overall Sprint Championship still a possibility, Clonis went on the attack. And with great momentum, he bravely charged around the outside of Surtees corner and got his nose in front for the right-hander at McLaren. A crucial move because this would ensure the title race went right down to the final day of the season. Just behind them on track, but a lap ahead, the number 24 Ginetta of Simon Rudd was in 5th place overall. He just unlapped himself on the 2nd place Seika and was proving to be a real thorn in the side of Alan Purbrick, who was desperately trying to catch the race-leading Ferrari of David Mason. Purbrick tried for the outside line into Paddock Hill, but Rudd was having none of it. During his stint, Purbrick had clawed back almost a complete lap on the race leader and was now just 2 seconds adrift. But with time running out, and despite his best efforts, the Ginetta still in between himself and the Ferrari. And just a few seconds adrift in 3rd place, Declan Jones was flying after the pair of them in the Ginetta that he'd taken over from Lucky Kerrer. A tremendous 4th place overall for the Class 4 Ginetta of Marmaduke Hall. The Tockwith Motorsports entry also on course for an endurance class win. Sam Allpass picked up a late stop-go penalty but retained the lead of Sprint Class 4. Meanwhile, the number 7 Ferrari of David Mason made its way through clearways, still leading and still with the useful buffer of the Team Hard Ginetta in between himself and the number 65 Seika of Alan Purbrick. They're about to start the penultimate lap of the race. On one hand, Purbrick was thinking about the race win, but on the other, his 2nd place was far from secure, with Jones closing all the time in the Butler Motorsport Ginetta and more than 5 seconds a lap quicker. Now agonisingly close to the Ferrari, and with them coming up to lap the Audi, Purbrick seized his opportunity, braking late and hard for Druids and committing to the less favoured outside line. He kept the momentum going, boxed the Ginetta in behind the Audi and then lunged down the inside into Graham Hill Bend. A phenomenal move that now put him right on the race leader's tail. It later transpired that Purbrick had believed this to be the final lap of the race, hence the all-or-nothing approach. Now free of traffic, the pair thundered up towards clearways, They were now being tracked by the all-white Ginetta, driven by rapid Britcar debutant Ryan Harper-Ellam, 9 laps down after that early puncture. Planting his foot to the floor, Purbrick went on the attack on the exit to clearways, drawing alongside the Ferrari through Clark Curve and nosing ahead on the exit. Onto the final lap of the race, the pair crossed the line, split by just 7 thousandths of a second. Mason coming back on the outside line, but not given an inch by Purbrick. Some way behind all the drama and lit up like a disco, the Mark Carr's McLaren was headed for a strong 6th place finish and 3rd in the endurance category, while the Maximum Motorsport set of Stuart Lyons and Tom Walker was close behind in 7th. So after completing a breathtaking chase, Alan Purbrick sprinted for the finish line to take the team's maiden race victory in the championship. Despite only coming home in 15th after that early puncture, Sarah Moore and Matt Greenwood had done enough to wrap up the endurance title. Fantastic race with the top 3 covered by just 3.8 seconds after 50 minutes of flat-out racing.
It was tough out there in traffic, really tough. Alan had a mountain to climb in terms of getting through the traffic. And I've never run as fast or as far in my life as I was running backwards and forwards on the radio, telling him where his position was and the gap to the cars in front, the gaps to the cars behind. That was a real team effort. I cannot tell you how over the moon we are.
When the guy said, you're getting there, you're 15 seconds behind him, there's a few laps left, you've got a chance, go for it. That, you know, to use that old phrase, that was hammer time. So that was like, that was really going for it, definitely.
One of the outstanding performances in race 1 came from Declan Jones and teammate Lucky Kerrer, 3rd place on his night racing debut.
The adrenaline was very high. The lights were coming really fast. I always thought that someone was trying to overtake, even though they were a bit further back. So adjusting to that was quite difficult, but once adjusted to it, I found it quite easy, really.
The problem was, as it was getting darker, the traffic was becoming more difficult to overtake because everyone doesn't really know who you are, so everyone starts defending that a little bit more, and so to come through at the pace that we were doing was tough way, but it was good fun.
After suffering bad luck for most of the season, 4th place overall and a maiden endurance class victory went to Tockwith Motorsports.
We've had some big downs, and I think you in part get used to them because they're just a part of it. You've got to move on with it, and the team have done a great job to get us back to where we are now. And just a big thank you to our sponsors Trico and Romero Insurance, because without them we wouldn't have managed this season, definitely not.
The team do an amazing job. Setup wise, it is always, we never ever have a problem with setup. I'd say big thanks to Kieran, who's main mechanic on the car, and the same again my brother. Setup wise, it's absolutely amazing. It is really, really good.
BPM had looked like getting a class podium until Ash Woodman accidentally set off the car's fire extinguisher during the pit stop.
Martin did a fantastic first stint. We had a plan and we were following it to the letter. We knew we had the car and we knew we had the pace. So really frustrating. The air was very, very blue.
I bet it was. What's the key to a quick lap around here? Because actually there's more to the eye at Brands Hatch Indy, isn't there?
It's actually an incredibly technical circuit. There's quite a lot of the circuit you can't see, a lot of blind corners, specifically Paddock Hill Bend is the big one. Whether you arrive there in the daylight or the dark, you can't see the apex anyway, you commit to it entirely blindly effectively. There's always just a little bit to find. It's one of those places where you never quite feel like you've got the absolute perfect lap.
Although his race was ruined by an early puncture, Radical sports car frontrunner Ryan Harper-Ellam had shown impressive pace on his Britcar debut, despite being new to the car.
Radical's a bit more aero, a lot lighter, a lot smaller, and there's nothing over my head, so it's a bit different. And for me, getting the lap time out of the car's not too hard. I've settled in fairly quickly, and I think I was sitting around the same kind of lap time as the other car, which have obviously done really well in the championship this year. So positive for me, good for the team, and hope for some more later on.
As the winter sun set and darkness started to creep in, we got ready for race 2. One car that wouldn't be on the grid though was the Tockwith Ginetta of Sarah Moore and Matt Greenwood, sitting this one out to avoid the risk of picking up any penalties, having already wrapped up the Endurance Championship. With race 1 results setting the grid, it was David Bryce on pole in the Seeker with Ross Wiley alongside in the Ferrari. Wiley got a good start and attacked around the outside of Paddock Hill Bend for the lead. Bryce came back at him though, and the pair were still side by side as they climbed up Hellwood Hill. Wiley wasn't backing down, and into Druids the Ferrari was still on the outside but just ahead, and the Scotsman knew he'd have the racing line going down to Graham Hill Bend. Joining late was the ex-BTCC Toyota of Team Hard, Sam Randon starting from the pit lane after an off on the formation lap. Lucky Kara led a Ginetta 1-2-3 in the fight for third, with Marmaduke Hall and Tom Barley in hot pursuit. There was no joy though for Matt Le Breton as he span on the exit to Graham Hill Bend, the Audi taking to the grass and dropping him to the back of the field. Ross Wiley led at the end of lap 1, knowing that he'd likely have to build at least a one-lap lead to give his co-driver a chance of victory. Following their gearbox failure in race 1, the Sprint Championship leaders had to start at the back of the grid, and Christian Prosser quickly moved up the order in the BMW and onto the tail of the title-rivaling Seat of Chris Bentley. As the last remnants of light faded, the race for third place remained ferocious. Marmaduke Hall glued to Lucky Kera as they weaved their way through the traffic, and then into clearways, the door cracked open and Hall cracked on. On the back of the grid, the Ginetta of Ryan Harper-Ellum and the Seat of Martin Byford had both made great progress, up to 8th and 9th respectively. After 25 minutes, the top two pitted for driver changes, but with the Ferrari more than a lap ahead. And the safety car was out. This was after Rob Baker's smart car had ground to a halt on the Brabham Straight. With the sprint class pit stops complete and the incident cleared, it wasn't long before Alan Purbrick swept past David Mason to unlap himself. But the endurance class leaders were out. Heartache for Tockwith Motorsports after a blistering weekend up to this point. So Ryan Lindsay picked up the endurance lead in the Intersport BMW, another driver to bounce back from a lowly grid position. And Sam Randon was on a mission in the Toyota. From the pit lane start, he overtook Martin Byford to move up to third in the endurance class, behind teammate Tom Barley. They were closely followed by the McLaren of Neil Garnham and Rob Young, everyone having been bunched up by that safety car. Into the top 6 and leading Class 4 was Tom Walker in the Maxima Motorsport TCR Seat. Also running well was Michael Cox, up into the top 8, having taken the WEC Motorsport BMW up from 22nd on the grid. With 50 minutes up, the end of the race for the sprint category cars was about to be signalled. But the drama wasn't yet over. John Watt spinning the BMW on the exit to Druids, and then coming unstuck again on the dew-filled grass as he tried to recover. Title rivals John Clonis and Chris Bentley were leading Class 4 and would close the gap in the points, but not by enough to take the title. Gingerly, Watt guided his slick-shod BMW away from the damp grass, but straight into the path of oncoming traffic, and chaos ensued. The Audi left pointing the wrong way for the second time in the race. The Audi had been forced to brake, and with no time to react, the Intersport BMW had gone into the back of it to trigger the spin. The Ferrari and the WEC BMW both on the grass in avoidance. Despite the excursion, a steely drive from David Mason had been enough to keep the Seika at bay this time. So it was the sprint class victory for FF Course, with Kera and Jones completing the podium. It had been no easy race though, as David Mason explained.
When I settled behind our main competitors from next door, I thought, well, what could possibly go wrong? I can just sit here, I could overtake him, but there's no point in overtaking, no point in taking chances. And the next thing, I'm off in the gravel at the top of Clearways, and I thought, having let Ross down yesterday, I've got to get out of here. And I did get out, thankfully. And then 4 laps later on, I went round Druids, and there were 4 cars sideways, and the only way I could get round them was taking to the gravel, yet again. We've got enough gravel in those rear wheels to start a business, believe me.
The accident at Druids had put the Intersport BMW out with a damaged radiator, so there was a chance for the Team Hard Ginetta to pick up the lead as the endurance cars continued. Having pitted earlier than their rivals, Simon Rudd and Tom Barley ran third for the time being. The class-leading Maxima Motorsport Seat was in as Tom Walker made way for ex-British touring car racer Stuart Lyons. Also joining a flurry of scheduled pit stops was the BPM Motorsport Seat. Martin Byford in from second place behind the Team Hard Toyota. Fresh from the car, we got some reaction to a very good stint from Tom Walker.
I thought the tyres were going off near the end. It was just about controlling the pace of the car, but I had to set the fastest lap first in our category before I had to back off.
And how much have you enjoyed doing this night race at the end of the season?
It's a nice way to sign off this season, I think. Well, obviously the day into night bit, it's totally different compared to everything else I've done, and I really enjoyed it.
But shortly afterwards, it all went wrong. Stuart lines straight on at Graham Hill Bend with what looked like a brake issue. And the other Seat was delayed after picking up a drive-through penalty for a pit stop infringement. Bouncing back, though, were Mark cars, as James Kay moved the Audi up to 4th place, with the team's McLaren 5th. Matt Le Breton, who drove the Audi at the start of the race, now about to hop into the supercar. And solo driver Alan James in the Class 5 Synchro Motorsport Honda was, as always, punching above his weight, in 6th place overall. Ginetta Super Cup and Class champion Michael Crease had taken over the Toyota. Useful practice as he steps up to the BTCC with Team Hard in 2019. Having been forced to pit with scraping bodywork, he tried to retake 2nd place from Nick Scott Dickerson in the sister car, only for the door to close, the Ginetta ultimately plummeting down the order. And kudos to Talk With Motorsports. They might have been 83 laps down, but they'd fixed the car and would finish the race. Avoiding all of the drama, though, to come through and win the endurance race, it was victory in the final round of the year to Simon Rudd and Tom Barley. It's confirmation of the result, with Woodman and Byford taking an excellent 2nd place, ahead of Randon and Crease. Let's hear from your race winners.
A nice win at the end of the year, great for our sponsors, IG.com, Engine Carbon Clean for getting me out in the car. This one's for them, thank you. Mega year, just so chuffed we could finish with a P1.
You're so consistent this year as well.
Yeah, podium every race. Couldn't ask for more. Team Hard, absolutely awesome prep on the car. Gave us something magical every race, and we had loads of fun. It was awesome.
We've absolutely loved teaming up together in endurance races. I think Class 3 is the class to be in. I think it's the most competitive, and for me, winning that class is the main thing for us.
A tense couple of days, but in their first season of Britcar, John Watt and Christian Prosser held on to take the Sprint Class Championship.
Coming into this weekend, we knew it was going to be a tense weekend. We knew what we had to do, and sadly, on the Saturday we had a gearbox issue, and it made things seem a lot harder for us then. Me and John had a chat last night, and we reassured ourselves, worked together, and that's how today went. Really, we were doing really, really well. So I'm really pleased.
Both of us left yesterday genuinely on the brink of tears because we thought it'd all gone. So we've gone from that real low to pulling it off today with a 7-point margin or something. So it's been up and down. The albatross that's been hanging around my neck for what feels like months has fallen away, and I can relax a little bit now. So yeah, fantastic weekend.
And in their first season racing together, it's Sarah Moore and Matt Greenwood who take the Dunlop Endurance Championship.
It's been a fantastic season. I kind of feel a bit down that we didn't get to do the last race, but you have to do these things for the championship. So we came away with it. We came into this year not planning on winning the championship, so to come away with a big trophy at the end is a massive bonus. So we're really happy.
Toffler have got a really large amount of experience through winning championships, and they've won this championship before. The championship's all about the consistency, and they've given us an amazing car all year. So big thanks to them.
It's been the best season yet of Britcar. We look forward to seeing you all again next year.